So, UFC 301 is now in the books, and the champion stays the champ as Pantoja gets the victory in a unanimous decision win over Steve Erceg. And a lot of talk about Erceg in the final moments looking for a takedown when maybe he shouldn't have. And this is one of the reasons why I always bring up people's resumes and looking at like, okay, who has this guy fought before and what types of situations has he been in? Because that is something that could work against a number of fighters. Going up against the champion in your weight class in the 5th round, that's not the time for that. And so this is a learning experience for Erceg. And it's tough when it comes in a championship bout because you should be learned by then. But this is a huge learning and growing experience for Erceg, who I thought really showed himself really, really well. But this is one of those things I talk about it in other sports all the time, and it comes up here. This is where you have to learn how to win. This is where you have to learn what it takes to win in those big moments. And Erceg just didn't have it here. Great fight. Very good fighter. Just didn't have it on this night. So what is next? Well, for Pantoja, I think his next title is against Amir Albaaz. Albaaz has won 6 in a row, 5 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. He is coming off of a win over Kai Kara France. The first 2 in the rankings, Brandon Royval, we've seen it. Brandon Moreno, we've seen it. This division does not need more rematches right now. We need new contenders coming in and getting these opportunities. And so I think Albaaz is someone who deserves this opportunity, has a real win over Kai Kara France. And so I think that is where the Ultimate Fighting Championship goes next with Pantoja. As far as Erceg is concerned, I have him going up against Mateusz Nicolau, both coming off of losses like a week apart. And both of them, I still think, fairly high in the UFC's rankings in the flyweight division. And so I do think that these are a couple of fighters who deserve an opportunity for a bounce back. For Nicolau, it's a couple of losses in a row. He needs one bad. And I think this would be a good get-right spot for Erceg. After that, Jose Aldo with a turning back the clock performance. And some people saying he should get a title shot. I am not one of those people. I like to give title shots off of things like merit. And while Jose Aldo, we did a legacy look. That resume, anytime they want to throw him into a title shot, they can be like, yeah, well, it's Jose Aldo, so deal with it. That they would be very much within their rights to do that. But I think in this case, he goes up against the incredibly named Song Yadong. They are right beside each other in the rankings. And I think this would be a really fun, really interesting matchup. And if Aldo wins this one, then we can talk about hot shot and a title opportunity. But I still think he needs one more win. In terms of Jonathan Martinez, I have him going up against Pedro Munoz, both coming off of losses, both in the bottom part of the top 15 in the bantamweight division. And so both, I think, needing wins to kind of get back into the kind of a win away from being 2 wins away sort of a thing, but both those guys really need to bounce back, and so I think that would be a good move to make. For Anthony Smith, some talk that maybe he works his way back up the ladder and becomes a title challenger one more time. I have him going up against the loser of Johnny Walker and Volkan Ozdemir, those two fighting in June. So just next month, so the timeline, not perfect, but they line up a little bit. The winner of this fight, I think, is going to want something a bit more impactful than someone behind them in the rankings. But I think for Anthony Smith, it makes sense. Like, he is working his way up. The loser of this will be kind of on their way down, and they're right there. And for Smith, it would kind of solidify, like, is this guy someone who can make one more run at being a title challenger, or is this just someone who has been on our desk, who obviously knows a lot about fighting, but maybe doesn't necessarily have it anymore? And I think it would be a good landing spot for the loser of Ozdemir against Walker. Michel Pereira, I have him going up against Chao Barallo. Both guys fought at 301. Both guys picking up victories. They're right beside each other in the rankings. Let's do it. They're on the same timeline. Let's roll with it. Pereira, again, so impressive coming off of that victory at UFC 301, and the maturity that he has shown after some questions about it in his first few fights, I think was really, really impressive for him. And the last one, my boy, Drakkar Klose. He comes up with a unanimous decision win. I have him against Beneil Dariush again. This was Klose's last fight. He has won 4 in a row since that loss. So let's roll that baby back. Let's do it again. Dariush, I think, is in need of I'm not going to just in need of a win is a bit of an overstatement, but you're in need of a win. And he is someone who I think is still a good barometer of can you get yourself back into title contention. The fact that Klose, after 4 wins in a row, coming off of the Dariush loss, isn't higher up than where he is, I find a little mystifying, quite frankly. So I think that this is an opportunity to see, like, has he learned from that experience losing to Beneil Dariush? But it's a good time for fight fans as we get ready for UFC 302. Obviously, there's a lot of complications around the UFC's new involvement with Saudi Arabia and all of the human rights issues that go along with Saudi Arabia. From a fight standpoint, Robert Whittaker against Khamzat Chimaev is fucking bananas. And so again, it's apparently coming up in hockey, but it's come up in boxing, and it will again this week with Usyk against Tyson Fury, and maybe later this year or early 2025 with a potential Canelo against Terence Crawford. We'll get to that in a second. But this is the start of what is going to be, I think, a complicated relationship for some fight fans. For others, yeehaw, who cares? Let's just see the best in the world punch each other in the head. And if that's your thinking, then boy, howdy, do we have a matchup for you in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. But obviously a lot of complicated factors go along with that. So those are the fights to kind of look forward to and the fights to make coming out of UFC 301. There is a fight night card this weekend. Derek Lewis, they're on the road, so let's celebrate it. Derek Lewis, he is the king of the fight nights on the road as they, I believe, make their way to St. Louis this weekend. All right, that is the aftermath following a big UFC, big-ish UFC.